Next focus is the University of Maryland, going there to play a 7:30 night game, so that'll be our next challenge. You know, I was walking through obviously the football facility yesterday, spent a lot of time there lately, and walked down the hallway where all of our bowl jerseys are hanging that have been won, you know, we've been involved with in the last 9 years, all the NFL players that have gone on. And it just sort of hit me a little bit, you know, where we are right now relative to where we've been. And I think the most important thing to recognize is that wherever we're going is to try and get back to that point and continue to compete, continue to build into the players in terms of what we're trying to do, concentrate on fundamentals, get our younger players ready to go, along with our older players, same thing. Competition, I believe, is something that every competitor or in every sport or really in business or school or anything, they have to deal with things, sudden change at times. They have to deal with things that aren't going quite so well. And when those things happen, you sort of return to what allowed you to get to these places in the first place, which has always been tougher, effort, and knowledge of what we have to do. So we'll build on that. We'll maintain our focus, and I'll take some questions.
Mark, you last week you called this place a sanctuary for your players. That's the way you want it to be. Mm-hmm. How have you seen them react, I guess, through the personal? And it's one thing for on the football side, but personally, how have you seen them reacting during this time?
Well, first of all, I think young people are resilient, so I think that they bounce back a lot quicker probably than coaches and other people that do this for a living. You know, our guys, they get themselves right. They get themselves ready to go. They're in the training room. They're in the weight room. You know, we monitor everything, how meetings are, and what's the attitude in meetings, what's the attitude in the weight room, what's the attitude in the training room. And at every turn, you know, it's been a positive thing. Talked to our players yesterday individually, some of our older players, how is our football team doing mentally and those type of things. So, you know, you're checking the pulse of our football team. So thus far, I would say, hey, we're hanging. You know, you got to be a rock. To play this game, you've got to be a rock in the first place. As I've said before, we've won a ton of games. It's all right. We all make mistakes right down there. Okay, no problem. Where was I? I'm just trying to come up with some things here. Okay, I think you got to be a rock. You have to be. You know, bad things are going to happen. You know, that's going to be a part of your life. Everybody goes through struggles. Everyone goes through struggles. And all you got to do is turn on the TV, whether you're watching the sports or whether you're watching something else. People have to handle problems, and so that's our mindset. That's what we have to do, and that's what we will do.
Mark, you referenced competition. I see Viante Copeland or Josh Butler. I know Josh played a lot in the second half. Mm-hmm. Is that just one example of if you go to that competition, maybe that brings out a little more in guys in various positions?
I think that first of all, our players need to compete within our football team certainly, but I was talking more about big picture competing in football games. You know, competing in the next challenge that's in front of us. But we're going to obviously have some depth chart moves as we go through this. I don't think there's any question that happens. You know, you've got to continue to press on, and there's got to be focus, and also has to be pressure. Not bad pressure, but pressure. Not stress, but pressure on our players to perform as well. I think that's part of this too.
Mark, you've obviously got the 9-year bowl streak since you started here. How important is that to you in this program, and is that a rallying cry at all to continue that going forward?
Well, I think absolutely it is. You know, I mean, it's something that we've done every year. We've sort of taken it for granted, and I don't think you can obviously take things for granted right now. You know, we're a 2-4 football team. Again, we've got to find the inches. You know, we've been able to do that. In some ways, a lot of you guys or media or people around have said that we've always played with a chip on our shoulder. We need to assume that chip is not there and put it there, I guess, if that's the case. I've always sort of thought that, you know, we challenged each other, we challenged ourselves individually to be at our very best at game time. That needs to come out again. But there has to be results-oriented. It has to be result-oriented too.
I asked you about this at the Cotton Bowl as well as Bowles and Dave Warner, but Saban said you guys were, quote, stubborn, unquote, and that you wouldn't change. After the BYU game, Mike Mulholland of MLive reported the BYU coaches saying they didn't see anything new that they didn't expect. And I'm curious, Mark, I know you self-scout. Are you concerned about your team becoming, in certain cases, predictable, or is that maybe just hyperbole?
I think it's hyperbole. You know, there are always wrinkles. As I said last week, you can't come out this week and, well, I guess maybe we could say, hey, we're running a triple option. Maybe Maryland will get ready for that. Okay, but you can't just change and overhaul something that you've done, especially if you've been good at it. And so what we have done is we have put players in positions to make plays. What we have done is we've taken relative schemes that we use offensively and defensively. We've had tremendous success doing these things. So I don't think that you go away from what you've been successful at and all of a sudden say, hey, we're going to change that, and that's no longer important. We're going to do these things. We have to make sure that the things that we do have a foundation behind them so that our players can play fast, that they know what to do, and they can play fast. Because the problem right now is sometimes our players aren't playing fast. I watched Josh King, who's going to be a phenomenal player. He comes off the edge in the game on Saturday, and he's just young. Comes off the edge, and before he gets hit on a wham block and a block coming back from the tight end, he fixes his helmet in the middle of the play. Well, you can't do that. I mean, it's things, and that's just a very small thing, but you have to be able to know what you're doing, play fast, and execute whatever it is. Whether it's playing the deep ball or running a route or throwing a route or pass protecting, whatever it is, you've got to be able to do those things at a rapid rate, and you've got to do it aggressively. And that's what we need to concentrate on, and fundamentally sound. That's what wins football games, fundamentals.
Mark, looking at the quarterback situation, it's down to two guys now. Is Damian completely out of the mix, or what is the situation between those two, and what was your evaluation, I guess, on Monday with the guys?
No, Damian's not out of the mix in terms of playing. He had a little hand issue last week, so we held him and we went with the other two. So we'll see how the practices work out this week. We'll make some determinations as we go, and sort of go from there. As far as my speaking to our quarterbacks, that's an in-house thing. But I spoke to all of our quarterbacks and make sure that everybody was in good shape mentally.
Is it the same situation up to a game time decision right now?
Probably be more game time decision. Yeah. I'm ready to go if you guys are. You can let me off the hook.
Mark, one lost in a lot of this is R.J. Shelton having a really fantastic senior season. Where has the development been there with him that's allowed him to take this step? What have you seen?
I think R.J. has always been a guy that has a lot of athletic ability, and he's always been a guy that's made plays for us. Even go back to 2013 as a true freshman. He made some very big plays for us. 14, 15, same thing. Now he's in his fourth year. He's become taken a little bit of that. He's the go-to guy a little bit. He's become a little bit more of the big play guy, maybe, and I think that's showing. But he's got experience. He's very confident. He's made catches on the deep ball. He's made runs. He's done a lot of different things for us, so he's been very productive.
Maryland obviously has undergone some changes since the last time you played them. Mark, would you discuss both sides of the ball and what you see from them offensively and defensively, please?
Yeah, from a defensive perspective, I think you see a lot of what Coach Durkin did at U of M. You see a lot of press coverage, a lot of different pressures with the middle of the field safety. They're going to play a variety of different coverages, little quarters, things of that nature. They'll have an extensive nickel package. I think he's got his guys playing hard. On the offensive side of the ball, they've had an injury at quarterback. They've used a freshman quarterback this last game. Whether he plays or not will be up, probably game time decision or up to them. But variety of running backs that they use, and I think their wide receivers are talented. They've not thrown the ball as effectively probably as they've want to due to some injuries and a freshman quarterback a little bit. 4-0 start. You've got the makings of a good football team. We'll play hard. We'll play hard. That will be our challenge, play hard and get ourselves mentally ready to go.
Notice Dennis Finley at guard now. Is he progressing to the point where he can play a little bit more? And how, I guess, what brought the change to moving him inside?
Well, David Beadle will not play this week. He's out, and I think that's probably a pretty well-known fact. So Dennis, I think he's to that point. I think he's ready to go. You know, he needs to get confident again, I think, in terms of being able to play at game time, at this level at game time. But he's played before, and he's got the experience. We've got to get him going.
Mark, you talked earlier about the spirit of the team right now. Is this uncharted territory for you and the team with where you are with that right now?
For me?
And the team?
No, not for me. I've been there before. Hopefully won't be there again, but who knows. But I think everybody goes through these things at some point. You know, whether it's an injury that sets you back, or whether it's you lose a game that sets you back, or whether you don't quite play as well and somebody else takes over your position for a short time, or whatever it is. There are always setbacks in life, like I said, and I think the thing that we have to do is we have to handle that and compete. As far as our football team, you know, I really can't remember. I can't remember 2009 or how we started. I know that 9 and 12 were difficult seasons in terms, but at some point in time we turned it a little bit and scrapped. And at this point in time, we're going to just become a team that's going to scrap. That's my intent. And let's get on with that first. So we'll be all in. We will be all in. That's all I can tell you.
Mark, can you look back at the fourth quarter play calling? It seemed like things opened up a little bit more for what you guys wanted to do. Is that a little more of what you guys want to do on offense, or was that just simply out of the nature of the score and the need to get back in it that late?
I think in the fourth quarter, you know, it became a little bit more of a passing game. We need to be able to run the ball more effectively than we did on Saturday. We've got good tailbacks. They need to become a little bit more of our production, I would say. So we've got to be able to maintain that. That's what we've always done. Not wanting to do what we've always done, but, you know, that's been a strength of ours, and we have to maintain that has to reoccur.
With John Reschke having been out and it progressing till later in the year, at what point, Mark, will you consider just keeping him out and possibly using it as a medical down the road?
I guess that's something that we have to talk about when he comes back. I'm not sure when he'll be back. You know, he's not going to be back in the next couple of weeks. So that is probably the likelihood. He's been an outstanding player for us.
Mark, as special teams, I know has been an issue at different points all year with kickoffs out of bounds, returns, the hidden yards on punt returns. Do you think right now it's a matter of maybe using different guys? Is it schemes that aren't working? I mean, how difficult is that mid-season to try and solve some of those problems?
I think that, you know, if you look at the execution of the special teams and ask yourself, did we have guys there? Were they there? Did we miss a tackle? How did they take on and address a blocker? Those type of things on the kickoff. You know, who was our safety? Those type of things. You know, as far as, you know, some of the other aspects of it, you know, you got to look at everything. You got to look at, you know, we were looking at the kicker situation. I think Kiger's kicked well here the last couple weeks, very well. You know, I think Jake's been pretty solid as a punter. Didn't like the way he punted after a safety, but I think he's been very solid in that respect. So, you know, we just address the things as we see it and ask ourselves, is it scheme or is it execution? And then we've got to make changes if it's one or the other.
Coach, your defensive struggles have been noted throughout the season, but it came up last week that your defense is giving up 3 times as many points in the second half as the first. Coach Tressel attributed a lot of the defensive struggles to technique. Do you think there's anything even deeper than that in terms of the second half struggles, or is it still just overall play from everyone?
I mean, I think it comes down to fundamentals when you're playing it. You know, if you're the way you take on a double team, the way you take on zone, you know, missing tackles or whatever the case. There's some things there. Maybe there's some structural things as well. That's why I say this is all inclusive. Maybe there's a little confidence issue when things start moving in one direction. We had 6 3-and-outs on Saturday. A goal is 5. So if you get more than 5, you're doing pretty well, because it doesn't happen all the time. So we did have a lot of 3-and-outs, but then when we didn't, things sort of snowballed a little bit. So you have to look at everything, and that's what we've done. And we'll look at our leadership on the field as well, leadership and how we do things in terms of structurally, what we do on the sideline, everything. We'll look at it all. We're trying to get everything in order. But I agree with you. That's not the way we've played in the past, and we played pretty solid throughout the first half in a number of these games, and then things happen in the second half. So we just have to maintain what we do and continue to push.
Mark, LJ only got 3 carries on Saturday, and Dave Warner was saying, when it became over a passing game, it decided to go more with Gerald from a pass pro perspective. But what does LJ have to do to kind of be more steady and be a bigger part of that offense?
He's got to protect better in pass situations, certainly. But again, I go back to what I said earlier. We need to get our tailbacks involved, run and pass, and they need to be a bigger part of who we are. They will be, inevitably. Guys good? Okay, thanks.